Happy Thanksgiving!
Huh? What? No, really? Oh, yeah, American. Okay, Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Happy Thanksgiving.
yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Not all of us are Americans
Every
here.
year this happens.
What,
yes.
What is that? Why is that?
I don't know. I think the Canadian Thanksgiving happens in October, about a month earlier, since I'm from Canada. And Leah's from America. We're having this conversation, as we probably do in some form every year. I think Canadian Thanksgiving is more like the Harvest Festival, which they also have in the UK, I remember, when I lived there. And it's kind of the farmer's holiday at the end of the growing season. You've cut down all your wheat or corn or whatever you grow, and farmers are able just to relax. They've finished their big summer of work, and you thank God for giving you all the bounty of the earth and all that turkey? Kind of stuff. Yeah. Okay. We eat the same stuff.
Okay.
We do the same stuff, but we don't have that sort of story of the Indians and the first white people and all that. That's kind of the American thing. And I like the American Thanksgiving also because it sort of signals the month before Christmas.
Oh, yeah.
So that's another good thing about it. And we're going to be talking about all of that, both the history of the Thanksgiving and how it's sort of how it's become part of life in the modern world and, connected to things like Christmas shopping.
Right. And we will have to definitely get on our Christmas shopping if it is Thanksgiving already. Let's listen to our article real quick. As the year draws to a close, a series of festive celebrations kick off in the final months. Following Halloween, Americans eagerly anticipate gathering with family on Thanksgiving and taking advantage of some amazing shopping deals on Black Friday. While the image of a roast turkey often springs to mind when people think about Thanksgiving, this holiday's significance extends far beyond a feast. It's also a festival rich in historical significance. The origins of Thanksgiving can be traced back to the early 17th century when English Puritans, fleeing religious persecution, arrived in North America aboard the Mayflower. These newcomers faced immense challenges in their unfamiliar surroundings. It was through the generous assistance of Native Americans that they learned vital survival skills, such as hunting, fishing, and cultivating crops like corn, pumpkins, and beans. This knowledge led to their first successful harvest. To express gratitude, the Puritans invited the Native Americans to a feast which included roasted turkey. This event eventually evolved into what we now know as Thanksgiving. In 1941, the U.S. Congress officially declared the fourth Thursday of November as Thanksgiving Day. At most Thanksgiving tables, a roasted turkey often stands as the centerpiece, a tradition believed to have been adopted from the Native American harvest celebrations. The bird's popularity as the main dish stems from its accessibility, delicious taste, and ability to feed an entire family. Alongside turkey, classic Thanksgiving dishes include pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce. These dishes have their roots in the crops grown by early settlers and symbolize gratitude for an abundant harvest. Oh my goodness, where has the year gone? It's time for me to get my Christmas list together. It's time for me to tell all my family members what I want. Yes, no. As the year draws to a close, a series of festive celebrations kick off in the final months. So yeah, as the year draws to a close, at the end of the year, if a movie is drawing to a close or a performance is drawing to a close, it's just about over. There might be another 15 to 20 minutes of the time to watch it. Here it is the year that's drawing to a close. So it's almost December, the last month of the year. It's actually the end of November, so it's really, really getting close to the end of the year. And we have a series of festive celebrations. So festive here is talking about festivities. It's talking about holidays. It's talking about things where we get together and we go, yippee! And we feel festive. We have some drinks. We have some food. We have some celebrations, different parties that we do at the end of the year. And that kicks off in the final months. So a series of celebrations are kicked off in the final months. To kick off here means to start. If we talk about the football season kicking off, it means normally the first couple of games of the season, or the basketball season, the kickoff of the basketball season. Ironically, with the football season, when we talk about the kickoff, it's fun because one of the actions in football is to kick the ball off in the air. You're kicking off the ball to the other team. So it kind of works from that too. And well, it follows Halloween. Following Halloween is Thanksgiving. Halloween's my favorite holiday of the season. I don't know about you, Mike, that I get to dress up, I get to be silly, you get to be someone else for a night. You get to go and get candy, or in the old days you did. I don't get to do it anymore. But we Americans love Halloween, but we eagerly anticipate gathering with family on Thanksgiving and taking advantage of some of the amazing shopping deals on Black Friday. So we eagerly look forward to. Much like Christmas, where you eagerly anticipate Christmas Eve or Christmas Day, when you open the presents that you've received from Santa or from your family members. So you are sitting there and you're so excited about it. You're eagerly, desperately waiting for it. You're hoping that everything's going to go well. And that thing that we are eagerly anticipating is time with family and friends on Thanksgiving.
Absolutely right. With the image of a roast turkey, while the image of a roast turkey often springs to mind when people think about Thanksgiving, that is one of the images that people might think of, or that image that might spring to mind, this sort of picture in your mind. So when someone says Thanksgiving, people will often think of turkey. That's one of the first things that might pop or spring into their mind, pop into their imagination. This holiday's significance extends far beyond a feast. So it's not just that dinner you'll have with your family or friends, and turkey and all of the other wonderful foods will be on the table. It's not just that, although that still is, of course, a big part of it. It says it's also a festival rich in historical significance. So yeah, there's a lot more to Thanksgiving, and a very interesting story that goes back a few hundred years when you kind of look at Thanksgiving, how it started, how it kind of became an official holiday not that long ago, actually. That might surprise you. And also some of the things that people do in and around Thanksgiving that don't involve turkey and then falling asleep in front of the TV after the turkey.
Or watching football.
While watching football, which is also part of it. But that's not the only part of it. So let's get into some of the history first and figure out what the heck Thanksgiving is and why the heck people do it and how the heck turkeys became involved. Poor birds.
So the origins of Thanksgiving can be traced back, can be found to go back to the early 17th century, when English Puritans fleeing religious persecution arrived in North America aboard the Mayflower. So Puritans from England, those would be the Protestant people who were very, very strict in their moral code, very pure attitudes about how you're supposed to live. Opposed ceremonial worship, probably thought it was a little bit too much partying. These are folks who were kind of tight in how they handled their day-to-day living. And, well, they weren't doing so well in England, so they got out of there. They fled. They ran away very quickly, possibly in the night. They got on a boat and ran away. If you flee, you normally are running off in practically any direction to get away from something that is hurting you. Maybe a bear attack is about to happen, is imminent. That bear is coming at you, and you flee. You run like crazy without looking back, and that's the way people left England, because they were fleeing religious persecution. Persecution here being the unfair punishment, probably by the government or other religious bodies, that were saying you have no right to your beliefs. You cannot do this. You are not allowed to be Puritan, and we're going to put you in jail. We're going to take away your jobs. We're going to make you live on the streets. Those would be examples of persecution. So, and they might be tortured as well physically. They might even be killed. These people ran as fast as they could, these Puritans, and they arrived in North America aboard the Mayflower. Mayflower being one of the ships that came over from England and landed on the soil of America at a harbor, where they got off and they started to go, what the heck do we do here? It's kind of cold. How are we going to live? Depending on when they landed, they might not have had enough food on them after being on that boat for a long time. Probably not in the best of shape, but they really were pretty lucky in the long run.
Exactly. Imagine how hard it is now to move from one country to another. Imagine back then you had to build your own home, find your own food, protect yourself from animals maybe you'd never seen before, find food and grow crops you didn't understand. Imagine a challenge. It's kind of like moving to the moon these days or something like that. That's basically how isolated and on their own these people were. So it's no surprise when we read the next sentence, these newcomers faced immense challenges in their unfamiliar surroundings. There's no one they could call and say, help, we want to go home. There was nothing like that. So huge or immense challenges. Immense is just a word that means really, really big. It could be physical, like Russia is an immense country, or that elephant is immense. I think we should run away because it looks angry. And it can also just be an immense challenge, an immense problem, something like that. So really big and difficult and challenging if we're talking about a challenge or a problem. So big problems, big challenges, big difficulties in their unfamiliar surroundings. They are now in America. They're surrounded by land that they don't understand. They're surrounded by plants and animals they're not familiar with. The weather patterns are different. The soil is different. How do we grow things? The corn or the wheat that we brought from England has all rotted in the boat. The horses have died. What are we going to do to use to pull our farm tools and whatnot, pull our plows? I mean, just imagine the difficulties. It's actually hard for us too. It was through the generous assistance of Native Americans that they learned vital survival skills such as hunting, fishing, and cultivating crops like corn, pumpkins, and beans. There you go. That's the story we're told. It was through the very kind and generous help or assistance. To give assistance is to give help. I would like some assistance. I would like some help. It's basically the same kind of word. And the Native Americans here, that's the modern term we would use. We would also maybe, you guys would be familiar with the term Indians as well. Native Americans, Indians. In Canada, we call them First Nations people. You got to be careful with this. I think Native Americans in America would be the most polite term.
Yep.
In Canada, we would say First Nations people. And we don't really say the word Indians anymore because Indians live in India, which is in another part of the world. But of course, back then, they were confused about that. So that's why they used that term. But now we have better terms. Anyway, so the local native people, or Aborigines, I guess we could also call them, because that's what they were, people of that land, from that land. They learned things from these Native Americans, vital survival skills, such as hunting, right? We're hunting new animals, buffalo and things like that, later on. But of course, even in that area of the world, in sort of the east coast of America, they would have had beaver, they would have had muskrat, they would have had all sorts of animals that Europeans would not have been familiar with. Fishing for different types of fish and catching them in different types of ways. And cultivating or growing. To cultivate is to basically grow things like in a garden or more likely on a farm, cultivating crops like corn, pumpkins, and beans, all of which, like the Native Americans, are native to America. They don't have corn, pumpkins, and beans, or they didn't, I should say, have corn, pumpkins, and beans and things like that in Europe. So all of these things were very new and unfamiliar. They didn't know how to grow them. They didn't know how to prepare them, how to cook them, how to eat them, how to store them over the winter. The Native Americans were like, you poor, sad white people, we're going to help you. And I think actually a year or two went by and many of the original settlers, these Puritans, a lot of them did die of starvation and disease and accident and hunger. They were in pretty bad shape before the Native Americans finally took pity on them and showed them how to live in this new world. So this knowledge given by the Native Americans to the Europeans led to their first successful harvest. Finally, hallelujah, after a summer or two of failure, they were finally able to grow enough food to live through the winter, which of course was always the big challenge.
All right, let's take a break right now and listen to our Chinese teacher.
听众朋友大家好，我是安娜。我们今天终于要带大家来看一下这个感恩节啦。因为每年到了11月感恩节当然有时候会忘记它到底是怎么样的一个由来呢？它的历史如何？然后有什么样的特色呢？我们就只知道，我们很喜欢吃火鸡肉饭或者是烤火鸡，但是其实这个感恩节是真的有一个历史性的意义哦。比如说在第一段当中哦，我们就提到了全部我们刚刚开头的这个文意，可是我们在第一段的第一句特别注意一下第一句的这个句首的 as， 我们再来跟大家复习一下。as 后面到逗点中间如果出现了动词的 draws， 逗点之后又出现动词的 kick off， 那么就表示这里的 as 是一个连接词哦。连接词的 as 就有 when because 如同好像的意思，在这里根据文意的推断，它应该是属于 when 的意思比较通顺。随着年末将至，大家都要开始来庆祝这个一年。好，现在的这个感恩节呢， 虽然是烤火鸡啦，但是当然有其他的历史意义。所以第一段的第3句啊，这边的 while， 如果你把它翻成 when 的意思，文意就不通了。while 放句首真的还蛮常当成是 although 的意思，就表个让步。好啦，虽然我承认啦，对，虽然大家就想说 Thanksgiving 就要吃火鸡嘛，但是其实它的历史意义还蛮深远的。所以接下来我们就谈到第2段啦。那它的由来到底是如何呢？其实感恩节的由来就是追溯到17世纪初，当时的英国清教徒就是为了逃避宗教的迫害，就乘坐了 Mayflowers， 就是5月花，就来到了北美，这个 Mayflower。 好，那这些新来的人呢，新来的清教徒就是要在陌生环境当中生存下来嘛。不过当时是因为美国原住民慷慨的帮助，他们才能够学会重要的生存技能，才能够存活下来。我们在第2段啊，这边要特别注意一下第3句。第3句这边有一个特别的英文句型，叫做强调句或者是分列句。但是我们要先把3个字抓出来哦。前面2个字字首的 it was， 我们看到就表示过去式，当时正因为如何如何。那么接下来的关键字句中的 that 也要同时抓出来。你会发现 it was 点点点 that 点点点，在英文当中就是所谓的强调或分列句。可是当我们句子把这3个字都抓出来，你用手指都盖掉之后，你会发现句子剩下来的句子啊，就是原本的这个很长的句子，它剩下来的部分好像都是完整的耶。比如说我们把这3个字遮掉之后，你会发现 through 透过原住民的慷慨帮助， that 之后 they learned 这些清教徒就学会了以下重要的生存技巧。所以也就是说呢，真正的重点在于 it was that 这个强调句，它必须要跟原本有一个完整的句子做结合。那这个完整的句子，英文就会有主词啦，有动词啦，有副词啦。例如在这里的副词就是透过什么样的方法，透过原住民慷慨的帮助。所以我们把原本完整的句子，把方法放在 it was 跟 that 的中间做一个强调，中文叫做就是因为透过他们慷慨的帮助 that 之后，再把原本没有强调的完整句剩下的部分全部写上去。那现在大家对于强调句应该会有比较清楚的概念哦。
All right, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll be right back. As you mentioned, they had their first successful harvest. Finally, things were turning around. And when you have that successful harvest, you're like, yay, it looks like we're going to be okay. We're going to make it through the winter. It's going to be all right. And they wanted to say thank you. So the Puritans, to express gratitude, to say thanks, they invited the Native Americans to a feast, which included roasted turkey. So they invited them to come over and have a big, huge meal. And that's what a feast is. It's a huge celebration and where you sit down, and normally it's a lot focused on food. And when you feast, you can feast as a verb. I am feasting on my food. And you can have a feast, which is the food that you eat. And it's normally not just a little bit of food. It's a lot of food that's laid out to enjoy. It's a very prosperous look that you're getting on your table. And yeah, that's what was happening there. And this event then became kind of an annual thing over time. And it eventually evolved. It changed into what we now know as Thanksgiving. In fact, in 1941, the U.S. Congress officially declared the fourth Thursday of November as Thanksgiving Day. So the U.S. Congress, that would be our legislative body, the body that creates laws. It's a bicameral body, which means it has two legislative chambers. We have the House of Representatives and the Senators, and you probably hear a lot about that on the news these days. If you are following anything going on in the U.S., the Congress comes up a lot. And they officially announced and put it in formal writing. They said, hear ye, hear ye. The fourth Thursday of November every year is Thanksgiving Day. So the day changes from year to year, but it's every fourth Thursday of November that is Thanksgiving Day.
All right, so that would probably work out to be about the last Thursday, right? The last Thursday in every November will be Thanksgiving. So there you go, 1941. That always amazes me.
Yeah.
I guess people were doing it before that in some way.
Right.
But this just meant that everyone got the day off. Banks were closed, schools were closed, that kind of thing. It became an official holiday,
right,
whereas might have been unofficial before. It says at most Thanksgiving tables, or on most Thanksgiving tables, you could also say, a roasted turkey often stands as the centerpiece. That is the main dish. Of course, turkeys can be many kilograms. You can feed a decent-sized family with even a medium-sized turkey. So that stands as the centerpiece. It could also be the centerpiece, which is the thing placed in the middle of the table, and everything sort of sits around it. A centerpiece can also, if you're at a wedding banquet, they probably wouldn't have a big turkey in the middle of every table at a wedding. You might have a flower arrangement or something like that. That would be the centerpiece. So that would be another way of decorating the table. And also just having the table look very attractive. And if you can have a nice sort of light brown roasted turkey there, it would look beautiful. And so this turkey is a very big part of the meal, literally. It's big. But it's also important. It's an important part of the meal. You can't say, well, we don't have turkey, but we're going to get some KFC this year. I'm like, what? That's kind of lazy.
Anticlimactic.
That's kind of lame, so it's a big part of it. And it's a tradition believed to have been adopted from the Native American harvest celebrations. So in the same way that in Canada, we celebrate with a big meal at the end of the farming season, Native Americans did that too. They didn't call it Thanksgiving, but the idea is the same. You're giving thanks to God, to nature, to your fellow people for working so hard all year, having the luck to grow all this food. There weren't floods or droughts that meant we couldn't grow enough. And we're also giving thanks that we'll have enough food to live through the winter.
Right.
Of course, when we'll be lucky to hunt a few birds or something like that, but we won't grow anything. So this is a big thing, and it was sort of copied or adopted or taken on from the Native American celebrations. So they would say, we do this big thing, and we have this big meal to thank the great Gitchagumi, the great Native American god, whatever it might be. And so the Europeans were like, hey, we have our own god. What a cool idea. We're going to do the same thing. So that's what they did. So when you adopt something, it means you kind of copy it or take it on as your own when it came from an outside source or something. The bird's popularity, the turkey's popularity as the main dish, stems from its accessibility. There were many wild turkeys around. Turkeys, of course, are big, fat, and don't fly, so any idiot can hunt them. So they're very accessible. They're very easy to get. They taste pretty good, although they can be a little dry.
Gamey.
And their ability to feed an entire family. You can have maybe 2 or 3 people eat a chicken, but with a turkey, you could have 6 or 8 people eat a turkey. And if it's a big fat turkey, 12 people, 14 people, who knows? So that is why it's a very good bird, a very good source of food, basically, for the pilgrims and even today.
And also, when you have that turkey, you need to have other things with it, which means you can feed even more people. So alongside turkey, classic Thanksgiving side dishes include pumpkin pie, mashed potatoes, and cranberry sauce. Now, mashed potatoes, definitely going to have. Cranberry sauce, definitely got to have. Lots of folks in America have their cranberry sauce from a can. I learned from a fellow recording artist, Terry. She makes a really great cranberry sauce, and I have adopted her recipe into my annual recipe when I get a chance. It's like you just make your own stuff. Cranberries being the berries that you often see in mixed berries with raspberries and strawberries and blackberries. You'll often see cranberries in there. They're a bit tart, and they kind of pop when you bite into them. And when you make cranberry sauce, you boil them in a pan with some water, a little bit of sugar, and you add some seasoning to it and you let it cook up. They're super easy to make. In Taiwan, you can often find bags of Ocean Spray cranberries or other brands of cranberries, and you just take them home. You throw them in water, you add some flavor to it, and you've got your own homemade cranberry sauce. You can add some nuts, you can add some ginger. Believe it or not, it's really good. And you have to add those. And pumpkin pie, of course, being dessert, along with pecan pie in a lot of places as well. These dishes have their roots in the crops grown by early settlers. We talked about pumpkins before, so of course you'll have pumpkins. Potatoes were grown, so you'd have potatoes. Maybe there are cranberry bushes or cranberry trees. I'm not sure which one it is around. So you would just pick those because there were a lot of them around, so then you'd eat them. And they taste really, really good. Cranberry sauce, by the way, going back to that on turkey.
Absolutely.
They taste lovely with turkey. So they're from those crops grown by early settlers, and they symbolize gratitude for an abundant harvest. So they stand for, here's what we're talking about when we say symbolize. Those dishes stand for gratitude after a very, nice harvest. And, well, I don't know about you, but I'm about ready to have my turkey. So why don't we go and listen to our Chinese teacher while we eat?
Sounds good.
好，所以为了表达谢意啊，清教徒就请他们吃一场这个盛宴，然后包括烤火鸡，就会演变成我们今天所谓的感恩节。但在第二段的最后一句，我们先不要这个放过哦。第二段的这个第6句，我们来看一下。第二段的这个第6句啊，我们把中间的 know as B， 我们知道的 A as B 就是 B 的这个身份或名称。as 当介系词的时候啊，后面加名词。那这个名词呢，后面通常都是一个身份，比如说啊，这就是我们现在所谓的我们大家所熟知的 as， 就是 Thanksgiving 啦。同样跳到第3段的第1句，第3段的第1句在句子中间部分 stands as， 这里的 stand as 就是作为什么什么 stands as the centerpiece， 作为这个最中间最核心的最重要的一道菜 as 当介系词后面就是一个身份啦，或者是职称。甚至我们在第3段第2句比较前面一点 as the main dish， 这里的 as 也是介系词作为什么什么身份的意思。所以几乎是连续3句哦，我们看到介系词 as 后面加上身份或者职称的用法。不过最后一段啊，第3段当然就是说在感恩节除了吃火鸡之外，还有很多其他的菜肴哦，比如说南瓜派啦、马铃薯啦、蔓越莓酱啦等等之类的。但这个第3段呢，我们要特别注意一下第1句的地方。第1句我们在逗点之后的 a tradition， 先把它看清楚一下。这边的传统是什么呢？传统后面的 believed 一直到句尾先左右括号，它是关系子句的简化，省略了是 which 或者是 that。跟 be 动词 is， 那这个传统就是被大家相信啊，应该是当时这个美国的原住民啊，这样子来的一种传统。那但是我们为什么要特别抓出来？因为有2个重点。第一，在这里有一个被动表示客观的讲法 be believed to， 那被谁相信呢？就是主词不明嘛，就是被大家现在相信，所以 be believed to do something就是被动表示客观，中文通常翻成大家都相信这个传统啊，就是当时美国的原住民如何如何。好，接下来还有一个重点，就是后面的 to have been adopted， 你会发现它是被动式，而且还用现在完成式。如果我们看到的是表示对过去的一个推测，过去的事情照理来说用简单过去式就可以了。可是我们在这边提到哦，如果是大家都相信当时是发生了什么事情，表示过去事实的推测就会用 have 再加上 PP。 那在这里因为是被动的关系，所以整个句子看到的是 a tradition which is believed to have been adopted， 当时哦是因为什么什么的关系而从 Native American Harvest Celebrations 那个地方所借鉴而来。所以在这边呢，我们就先提到了一下感恩节它的由来。不过明天我们还会看一下感恩节会有什么样的习俗活动哦。我们明天见，拜拜。
Nom nom nom, I'm full. Time to sit back and watch some TV and maybe take a nap. I'm actually a day before Thanksgiving. We're only on Wednesday now, so we're probably just prepping everything up. Have you already eaten your turkey there, Mike?
Oh, I'm going to go down and get a turkey sandwich at the local sandwich shop.
Nice.
It's an easy Thanksgiving.
It works.
It doesn't take 8 hours of
well,
cooking.
Right, yeah, exactly. Days of preparation. Yeah, so anyway, guys, for English Digest, I'm Leah.
And I'm Mike.
Take care.
Bye-bye.